Mabel. Welcome to the show. So glad
Hello,
you could be
Kim.
here tonight.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here with you, Kim. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes. Well, like I said before, your message is messages. With all of the culmination of the things that you've done, it carries some really powerful messages. And right now, people are, this year of 2020, as you know, has been like no other. People have been challenged on so many different levels, and it's very hard to find that peace and be able to relax enough to find that abundance and happiness that you talk about, because it's kind of a polar opposite, fear and happiness you can have a healthy fear, deal with it and move on, but day after day after day of what's been going on in this country anyway, I'll have to say that I've not been exposed to zero frequency. I've been exposed to a few different types of programs, and again, like I said in the intro, I've really had to grab on to each one of those disciplines for all they're worth. Those things are easy to do when things are going well, but when we have a steady, just a steady drip like has been going on all year, just when you don't think something can get any worse, it does. And I think that it's really tested people to their limits. You can kind of feel, when I read zero frequency, I was thinking of that is a nice contrast to the constant static that we're almost feeling in the air. Maybe you're not. You're probably better at practicing this stuff. But for a lot of everyone else, as you're fully aware, this has been a time with a lot of chaos and a lot of static, and I'll be very anxious, as will the audience, to hear a little bit about another path or another road to explore to help bring us back to our center. But why don't we start? I kind of like to do it like a book, where we start at the beginning. Usually you tell me a little background about yourself and where you started, how you got interested in what you're doing now, and then I want to ask you some questions about your books after we've done that, and then we'll talk more about zero frequency.
Wonderful. So thank you. I was born in Argentina. I came to United States 37 years ago. I was a person that didn't believe in anything, and it was work, and making money and accumulating. I thought that material things would make me happy, or changing people or having them behave in a certain way would make me happy. I had everything that somebody thinks it needs to be happy, but I wasn't. And I woke up when my oldest son talked to me the way I used to talk to him, angry. And that day, like I said, I woke up and I started my search for happiness. I realized I was looking for happiness and peace in the wrong places. So I found many different things that helped me to realize that I was 100% responsible, that we create with our thoughts. So everybody right now, with everything that we are going through, is creating their own reality, because it's based on beliefs, judgments, what you decide to buy or not to buy, what you react or you don't react. So everybody's having a completely different experience with this. When I realized that I was 100% responsible, I said, I created this, then I can change it. Yes, because when what makes us very unhappy is to always be like dependent, yeah, of other people's behavior, of the government, of any situation that looks like it's outside of ourselves. And now, I did a lot of work, like everybody else, but there was a little voice that kept saying in my head, that kept saying there has to be an easier and faster way. And I actually found it. I found it in Ho'oponopono. It's a very ancient Hawaiian art of problem solving. So Ho'oponopono taught me about 100% responsibility, that it's not that I'm guilty, but what am I responsible for? The programs in my subconscious mind that show up in my life and attract certain things.
Mhm.
So, when you stop reacting as much, when you change your perception of things, it looks like somehow, you are guided, you are protected, things are coming to you. It's like you are in that flow, you are in that frequency where things come to you effortlessly.
I like the taking responsibility point that you brought up. One of the things I've been talking a little bit about lately is that so much of what I'm hearing has a victim edge to it, or
yes.
a blame and shame and victim edge to things. And I know it can sound trite to say, you've got the power to change that. Things are going to happen that are out of our control. The one thing we can have some control over is how we respond.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things that's kind of gone haywire, out there in the world right now. I mean, you've got families and friends that used to be able to, obviously they had something in common, whether they were family or friends or business associates. And, they talk about, like, say, politics now, and can actually end a relationship over that, which has been blowing me away to watch this shift in this dynamic all year long of this going on, because, before, and I'm no spring chicken, all of my life, I think that, I've been able to have a conversation with people, and we might even have argued, but that was just about one little compartment, and it didn't change the entire relationship, or end the entire relationship. We would agree to disagree at the end of that conversation and say, okay, we obviously have different opinions on this, let's go eat dinner, or, go on.
Sure.
And people aren't doing that now. There seems to be this tension that really makes a lot of people want to sell other people or change their mind, and just this trying to think of the word, just like not a desperation, but something like that, instead of sitting back and taking responsibility for our own path. Because I've always learned best not being dictated to, or being sold, or being mandated, I guess, by people who lead by example, have been some of my best teachers. I've looked around and seen a lot of people in my life, and I gravitate toward the ones that have something I want, or a characteristic that I would like to emulate or learn more about. And I certainly had an opportunity to be a victim a couple of times in my life, but when I was in that place, there would not have been a good outcome, nor would I have had a happy life if I would have chosen to stay at being a victim. So,
Yes.
what I had to do is make up my mind, hey, you've got one life. Do you want to live it miserable, bitter, angry, depressed, or do you want to take some affirmative type action, take personal responsibility, and go try whatever things I need to try, but be in positive action, trying to affect a change that will make me feel good in my own skin and happy. And I feel like a lot of people aren't doing that
Yeah, I
right
think,
now.
well, you touch into something very, very important, the victim mentality, yes? So
Yes.
you are totally powerless, you are totally codependent, of other people or situations or whatever. And actually you have to realize that the power is in you and in your decisions and your choices. So when you don't choose to see yourself as a victim, what happens is not only you can heal and feel proud of yourself and be happy and attract whatever is right for you, but also you can help others. Yes, because when you are,
Yes.
you grow and you can make a difference in other people's lives too.
Yes, absolutely.
So yes, the victim mentality, it is a problem, and you have a lot of people again, and that could see themselves as victims for the rest of their life, but it's really a choice. That's what we need to realize. Things that helped me, for example, to make a big change, because I come from the business world. I used to be a tax accountant. Things that really make that shift for me was to realize, again, that I was 100% responsible. So, I felt powerful again, like, oh, my goodness,
Yes.
I can change it. The other thing is the forgiveness, because I realized that if I didn't forgive, I was hurting myself. So it gets to a point that you said, hey, I love myself enough that I'm not going to hurt myself anymore. The thing of what you think of yourself is important, not what other people think of you. That's a big one. I live most of my life pleasing people, going out of my way for people to like me, but I didn't like myself, So no wonder I was not happy. So we are looking for answers in the wrong places. We are looking in the wrong places. So it is inside of us. And right now, that peace and happiness and everything that we are looking for, it is time to really look inside. I've been traveling really the world for, since 2008, nonstop, till March of 2020. Yes. And the thing is that I feel, to be honest with you, Kim, that I was planting seeds. I was really encouraging people for what it was coming. So I can tell you, a lot of my people around the world, I do lives, in Facebook, Instagram every week, and I receive this thank you actually, from people. They are so grateful because it's really, we've been preparing for what was coming. Something so serious that you can be at peace, that you can still be aligned, that nothing could touch you. Like I said before, not everybody is having the same experience, even though we are all faced with the same thing, because it depends on our thoughts, our beliefs, our reactions, our decisions. And like you mentioned something very important, that need to be right, or to have the last word. And that is very helpful.
Yes, I've learned one of the, and we can talk about this when we talk about zero frequency, but one of the things that I've learned first of all, it's not the end of the world to let somebody else have the last word and say something like, that's really interesting. I'd like to take some time to think about that.
Sure. Or like you said,
it's a way
we
that
agreed to disagree too. Sorry.
Yes, we can agree to disagree, or if it's, even more escalated than that, just stop and say, that's really interesting. I think I'd like some time to think about that, whatever it takes to disengage, because what I'm seeing is, momentum that is growing, like the snowball rolling down the hill, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's not a trip switch, it seems, for people to stop, It's just like this endless momentum that is building as I observe it. And so, one of the and it's interesting that we're doing this. I was a financial consultant for 25 years, and so I have a business background as well. And then the listeners here, a lot of the listeners here are people who have suffered a brain injury of some kind, whether it be from the inside, like a stroke, or in my case, a ruptured brain aneurysm, or people perhaps who have had a TBI in the military or in sports or from a fall or a car accident. And then there's caregivers who are equally yoked but with a different kind of challenge. And so everyone here is not a stranger to life getting turned completely upside down. We didn't have a choice at the point our life was turned upside down. We didn't get up one day and feel uncomfortable with what we were doing and be affirmative in making a change. The change happened to us,
Yes.
And so then we had to work through, and the way that, our process worked was, and I think I speak for most of us, in that we thought we'd be able to go back to doing what we were doing before, like if you break an arm or something, you break it and it gets set and then it gets healed and you go through a process and then you're back to normal, and we all had that expectation, I think. And when a lot of us found out that that was truly a life-changing event that really didn't allow us to go back to what we were doing before on a lot of different levels, and certainly not to maybe do it the way that we were doing it before, then our desire was created, or at least that's what this show was about, is giving people the tools, introducing people to tools that when you do let go of the past and look at what you accomplished, review the past, but then realize that's what it is the past. And starting today, for whatever is left of the rest of my life, I don't want to sit on the bench and just watch the world go by. I want to be an active participant in my life and build a life, that's hopefully peaceful and grateful. One of the things that you talk about and that I find myself doing a lot more in this process of recovery, and my first brain injury was in 1995, so I've been doing this for a little while, but is trying to be grateful. You talked about the energy in business and the types of things that made us happy, things that we accumulated, material things, the more adrenaline, the better. And now what I'm finding are the things that bring me joy and happiness are more simple pleasures. That old adage about stopping and smelling the roses, I actually do that. you know.
Yes,
And
good for you.
I take pictures too. I've been a photographer now for quite a while, and so I will go out. In fact, that was a transition for me. One of the pivotal points for me is when I wasn't seeing a lot of beauty in the world at a certain point, and it was because I didn't like me. I didn't know who I was anymore, and I was going to have to try to build a new me that I did feel comfortable with. And when I wasn't seeing that beauty out in the world is when I was given a camera and went out and started taking pictures, and the irony still isn't lost on me that when I was taking the pictures, I still didn't see the beauty, but when I came home and uploaded them, I did. I did see the beauty. And there it was, those moments, just split-second moments captured forever that were beautiful. Yes. And after a series of those, I realized that for me, life is a culmination of moments. And there is a lot of beauty and gratitude in those moments if I will let there be. Often it's me that gets in my way.
Yeah, and look at you. You are, through this radio show, you are supporting a lot of people because you decided not to see yourself as a victim and because you found something that really gets, to your heart that you love to do. For me, I didn't pay attention to nature before either. But because of the confinement and everything, I started, pushing myself. I said the minimum I have to do is at least go for a half an hour walk every day. I put it on even on my agenda. And suddenly I also started looking at the flowers and taking pictures. It's something that I never paid attention before of the beauty. So I know what you are talking about. I mean, again, it's like, and I actually talk to the flowers on my way, on my walks. I mean, I find it amazing. Yes, so I can relate to that. So again, what you are paying attention to, or something that happened, it always has a blessing in disguise. It's always a blessing behind. But we get stuck, with what happened to us, again, like we were saying, the victimhood. And then, it's like you're hurting yourself. You're closing doors for yourself. There is a gift in whatever happened to you. Yeah. So, like I said, again, look at you, having this and being able to support other people that went through something similar to you, that maybe they don't have where to go or who they are, somebody that understands them.
Right. Well, and I feel very fortunate. I've been here every week for 9 years, and, what I've said was 10 years ago, if you would have told me that I would be a radio host and that I would write a couple books and that I'd be a photographer and get a couple of the awards and achievements that I've done that were out of my box, for that first part of my life, I would have just looked at you in awe and laughed my head off and said, "You've got to be kidding me," because I didn't have experience in any of those things. Sure.
Well, look at me. Look at me, a tax accountant, and now I travel the world. I'm a public speaker. But I have to tell you, I had a teacher, a oponopono teacher for over 10 years. And actually, when I realized I was going to teach, it wasn't on my plans because I was looking for happiness in my personal life. My professional life worked, I made good money, I work part-time. I mean, what else could you ask? Yes, I always had work. So I wasn't planning to change careers at all, but the letting go and trust it took me places, I allow kind of the universe to guide me. So, but you know what he told me? Because I said, I'm going to go and take classes. I don't know anything about public speaking. And he said, no, that will take all your naturality. All you have to be is yourself. So being ourselves, what a gift. That you don't have to fake, that you don't have to be what other people expect or want you to be, that you can feel good in your own skin. So one of the things, and you had mentioned a little bit of what I talk about in Zero Frequency, because of my own experience, I can see how important it is that we do what we love, that we really utilize our natural talents, because unfortunately we were all programmed that we had to go and find a job, that you couldn't do what you love because you wouldn't have money for food and a ceiling on your head, so or a roof on your head. So the thing is that we really have to unlearn to be able to relearn. And experiences like yours and everything, it gives you so much insight, so much inspiration that, like you said before, there were things you didn't even pay attention to, that were not, they didn't look important, yes? But how many times, we used to make a lot of money, but we were not happy. People think that if you make money, you are happy, yes? Or if you have a university
do, especially
title.
people who don't have it.
Yeah. So,
people who don't have it always think that they would be.
Listen, I had 2 university degrees. I live in a big house. I had 2 new cars. A husband, 2 beautiful boys and healthy boys. And, my mother used to come from Argentina to visit here in Los Angeles, and she would ask me, what's wrong with you? Because, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. But
because you didn't feel
happy. Looking outside, yeah, exactly. As you keep looking outside, you will never find it. It's all inside of you, and it's all in the spirituality. Yes.
Yes. So is that when you decided and came across this teacher that kind of builds up to where you were very successful, but that wasn't making you happy? And so how did you find this teacher and become interested
Kim,
in this study?
Kim, it's very interesting. Once you make a decision, there is a whole universe to support you. We don't believe it. We feel that we are alone. But the thing is, you have to take that first step. You have to make that first move. You have to show that you trust. You have to let go and allow yourself to be guided. Yes? So believe me, I am just talking about, I come from my own experience, from seeing results. I am still a very intellectual person. So many times I talk about things that are nonsense, but I tell people, but they work. That's why I started letting go and trusting, because I started seeing results. So, for example, the day that I made that decision of, hey, Mabel, you have to do something because, when my son woke me up, immediately I found a class about anger. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go and find out what anger is, where it comes from. And that teacher, it ended up being a metaphysical teacher. And he had groups at home. He invited us to sign up if we were interested. I signed up, and then I started, he was an amazing teacher, and I learned a lot about metaphysics. A friend of mine noticed that I was in the search, and she gave me a metaphysical book. I started going to yoga classes, and the teacher would make us do a visualization at the end, and I would manifest whatever I visualize in the morning, I would visualize it the same day in the afternoon. So I said, could be that we are so powerful that whatever we think, or that you make a decision and then you really, you don't have to do much, it comes to you. One thing that helped me a lot was rebirthing. It's a breathing technique, conscious breathing technique that also takes you back, maybe to childhood when you made some decisions that are running your life. But I saw a lot of drama and a lot of blaming. There was always about finding who did something to you that's why you have the problem, yes? So, and a lot of crying, again, a lot of drama. So I had a voice in my head that said there has to be an easier and faster way. There has to be an easier and faster way. And to be honest with you, oponopono, this very ancient Hawaiian art of problem solving, just show up in my life. Actually, rebirthing took me to that. So what you have is to put yourself in this frequency, and then it will take you places, things will come. Like, for example, I always work as an employee in CPA offices here in U.S., but suddenly, because of Ho'oponopono, I started my own practice, and it was crazy because I was going through a divorce. I needed stability. In November of 2008, I woke up and I said, I'm not preparing any more taxes. And I called my kids and I said, you have to find another accountant. I'm not preparing any more taxes. So changes like that, very illogical, decisions. But I can tell you amazing stories, each time I trusted, each time that I let go and trust. And I allow the universe to guide me. So when you know that you are guided, that you are protected, also that gives you a lot of peace of mind. Like especially in the times that we are living right now. If you know that you are protected, that there is nothing you need to worry about, I mean, it's a completely different life. You are living kind of in another dimension.
Yes, I'll say totally different. And I know that that's taken a lot of people off guard. Like I said, a lot of the people in this audience had to go through that process before, and now everybody is going through that process. And I think really at some point in their life, everyone does, whether it's from an illness or a relational change, some kind of a change in our status. There's resets, I think, for every demographic of people. I don't think anybody gets through life unscathed. But I did appreciate what you said, and I appreciate you sharing what you did about the different things that you tried, because a couple takeaways from that I try to talk to the audience about, like I said before, I didn't want to sit on the bench and watch life happening around me. I wanted to be instrumental in making my own life, which meant I had to get off the bench and try, which meant I had to let go of some old ideas about being the best, about the level of competition that I was used to operating in.
Sure.
I had to temper some old thinking, unlearn some old thinking, or redirect some old thinking, I guess. And when you talked about the different things you tried, that is really the kind of thing that I'm getting at too, or that I like to project, and that's a great example of it, is that, the first thing we try, it might be yoga. We've talked about that on the show before. It might be that you go out and you take a yoga class and that's nice. You're probably strong and more limber and paying attention to your breath and, getting some awarenesses that you didn't have before. But maybe that's not the thing. Well, you don't quit because that one thing didn't work. It is what you said. At least it worked the same way for me, and that's that once I became open and willing to try things, then if the first thing I tried wasn't the thing for me, I took the lessons from that experience and I moved on to the next thing, and moved on to the next thing. And you're right, once you're in that mindset of being open and willing and you're out there, it is amazing, isn't it, how one thing leads to another. When you said the rebirthing led to your teacher, those are the kind of things, and I fully agree with you that people, all of a sudden you find a whole pot of people that, are in the realm that you're working in. They were always there. I wasn't.
Mm. Yes, it's. I'm telling you, it's a completely different life. It's like we are in the same planet, but and again, we go back to 100% responsibility. It's what you decide, what that need of having the last word, or or being right. Yes, we have that saying. Yes, I'd rather be dead right. Yes. So
yes.
it is amazing. And now I want you to know I was not a believer. And one day I said, what the heck, I'm going to try it. Yes, I let go and trust. And things started happening. And you know what, it convinced me also, Kim, my career as an accountant. I used to, when I started my own practice, I mean, we didn't have emails yet. And people would call, the phone would ring, and it will be people that had tax problems, and they needed me to represent them, before the IRS here in U.S. And the results that I got for them in there, because I was practicing oponopono, they were amazing. So the thing is this. What is it that you would do even if you don't get paid? Maybe there were things, maybe you were going in the wrong direction, yes? And now is your opportunity. You have to believe, it's never too late. The other thing is not being afraid of death, because death is not what we think it is. So many times we are not present because we are always avoiding something, like avoiding the pain or avoiding death or things like that. And that keeps us from really enjoying and living fully, yes, being present and seeing the good or even being grateful, like we said, for the things. There is always things to be grateful for. In the worst case scenarios, you always can think of the things I can be grateful for. And that raises your frequency immediately. Yes, now you are in the positive.
Yes.
You can always think of what could I be, grateful that this person did this to me, or that I had that accident, or that this happened to me. And that will make a big difference in your life.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's hard to find that gratitude, but as you said, there is always something to be grateful for. Again, I hate to fall back on old adages, but there's a reason that they're old adages.
Yes,
because they ring true.
Yeah, I just need to ask you something, Kim, because I just want to be sure you and your listeners. Do you know Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, yes?
Oh, yes, of course.
She wrote that book, My Stroke of Insight.
Right.
Yes. I always mention in my conferences, I always mention her and the things that she found out after she had the stroke, and she needed rehabilitations and et cetera, et cetera. It's an amazing book. Everybody should read that because she describes how really our brains work and how to stop the intellect, the stories, that we tell to ourselves, that chattering, all the time. So she says to the left brain, now, thank you, but I'm busy, So realizing that we all have like two antennas, Dr. Bruce Lipton says, and you can change channels. So what channel are you listening to? Yes? And now you change your and you change your perception. It changes everything in you, only because you change channels, and now you allow inspiration to come into your life instead of keep listening to the crazy of the house, I used to call it. This part of us that it's always talking. And she describes
Absolutely.
it beautifully. It's an amazing book. I mean, I highly recommend my book too, but I highly recommend Dr. Chilburn's Detailers. That is amazing, especially for people that are more intellectual too, to really understand. Because, for example, Ho'oponopono and what I offer as tips and things that you can do to be at zero. It could be kind of out of the box, too easy, the intellect will disregard it. But if you really read her book, you will know why something so simple like Ho'oponopono, how to live in the zero frequency, can really be so effective, and it really works, because then you will understand what you are doing. You are actually stopping the intellect, from talking and selling you. It's always selling you, on things that usually are very pessimistic, and and things like that. So, and you are the only one that can stop that. Nobody can do it for you.
So your practice originally tuned you into what? Forgiveness and gratitude?
Yes.
How did your practice evolve for you, I guess?
Okay, so I'll tell you. Ho'oponopono is about 100% responsibility, and it's kind of, I'm sorry, please forgive me for whatever is in me, like little children. It's like it's an inside job. You're not asking forgiveness to nobody, outside of yourself or anything. But that was actually replaced by the thank you and the I love you. So actually, when you repeat mentally, so one way of stopping the intellect to be able to come more from inspiration, to come back more to present, to zero, it is about repeating mentally, thank you or I love you, even if you don't feel it or mean it. Because actually the thank you and the I love you in Ho'oponopono are like passcodes, or it's a way of pressing the delete key in your computer instead of talking to a monitor, okay? So, because that's the only two choices we have, reacting, having, like we said before, discussing, having the last word, or being happy, or taking 100% responsibility. Oh, that's it in me? Okay, I can change it. And you press the delete key. So Ho'oponopono became famous for 4 phrases that I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. But really, you can just repeat thank you, or you can just repeat I love you, or any combination, whatever works. So actually, that is a way of asking for help, giving permission to the universe to guide you and to protect you. You have to give permission. You have free choice. So Ho'oponopono is about bringing you back to present, giving permission for inspiration to come into your life, asking for help. And then, again, when you are guided and when you move or you speak from inspiration, it's very different than replaying memories. If we don't delete, we will keep replaying. And that's kind of what life is all about. We keep replaying memories. So somebody has to press that delete key if we want to see changes in our life. When we change, everything changes. It's not the other way around.
Yes, that's exactly right. And when we change, the dynamic of a lot of our relationships change too, hopefully for the better. But if we're in, any kind of toxic frame of mind or toxic relationship, then they're going to resist our change, and try to block that energy in us as it's transforming. Did you run into that at all?
Yeah.
At what point was your divorce?
No. You know what? When you start trusting, that makes a big difference. When you, for example, right now where we are living and everything, if you trust, you are safe. Yes. So being conscious and present of the decisions that you are making, or making conscious decisions, not allowing, your memories in your subconscious mind run your life. So you become the observer and you realize you are not your titles, you are not your problems, you are not your thoughts, you are not your beliefs, and you set yourself free. Because our real identity, our authentic, identity is the observer. But we are always identifying with problems and reacting. That's our problem. That brings more problems. The worst thing you can do when you have a problem is think or worry. And that's what we all do, yes, in automatic. So that takes you completely off present. That is, it puts you, you are definitely alone because you said, oh, let me do it. I know. Let me think about it. I know. And we get in more trouble.
Exactly right.
So we are always acting like we know. Sorry. Yes,
no, go on.
No, that it's about setting ourselves free. Yes, when you let go and you become a child again, really. That is the thing. We have to become a child again. We have to let go and trust. And I'm telling you, like I said before, I didn't believe, but when I started seeing the results, I started believing.
Yes, absolutely. And then you decided to start. Not only did that change your life, but you started writing books.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you particularly about and we can go back to the others. This may not have been the first one, but I was very interested, and especially because you said we find that childlike, I'm paraphrasing, that childlike, sense of wonder or innocence or openness again. And the children's book you wrote, The Easiest Way to Grow, Messages You Will Be Glad to Know. What made you decide to write a children's book? And the reason I'm going to start with that is because, it makes sense that you would start at the beginning and grow not only as people, but into the other books that you wrote.
Yeah.
That we'll talk about.
First of all, thank you for asking, because that's my favorite book, and I tell you why. First of all, I want you to know I'm not a writer. Yes, I write from my heart. My books are very easy, very practical, because, again, I'm not a professional writer, but I do it because this is the way, to get to more people, yes, with my message. Now, I have two children's books. One is Maluhia, the Happy City. That's Oponopono explain the basics, but in the stories. Beautiful stories. Maybe weird, maybe some people could think it's a fiction, but they are real stories, yes? Now, the easiest way to grow, messages you will glad to know, is something that I wrote because I needed to tell children and adults that they could be happy now. I love to work with children. I love to work with young people because I feel I woke up late. And I thought, oh, my goodness, if I would have known all this, my life would have been so different, So I put in this book an audio that now is digital. It used to be a CD that came with the book, but where I share everything I realized that changed my life. And again, I did it for also, like as a children, my students, they all, even if they are adults, they all buy my children's books too, and it helps them a lot. But the idea is very important that we raise happy kids, that we become happy parents, yes? And we teach by example. Let's stop creating professional people, sending them to universities. We know how unhappy we are. So that's not the way. Maybe I'll go to the university after I'm happy, and after I know what my natural talents are and what I would do even if I don't get paid. But that's why we created such an unhappy society. So when young people comes to my seminars and I look at them and I said, please, you can be happy now. Don't waste your time. For me, it's wonderful. It's the best gift when, parents bring their kids to my trainings too, and the love that I receive from them is a confirmation that I'm not talking BS,
Yes.
And it's a beautiful gift. So that's why I wrote this book. Actually, the pictures, I made videos because the pictures are kind of weird stories that I heard from my teacher that opened up my mind and changed my life. Because one day I said that I cannot see it or hear it, doesn't mean that doesn't exist. And that changed my life. And right now, with what we are going through, you have to open your mind, you have to be able to adapt, to change, and know that you are safe. Because right now, we are not going back to the world that we used to know. There is no way. So it's preparing us for something new, something better.
Yeah, I'm not sure that people quite realize that yet. There's still a lot of shock. I'm thinking...
Yes, there are a lot of people asleep, unfortunately. But you have to trust. We have this possibility. If you don't buy into the fear, we have this possibility of creating an amazing world for ourselves and for the next generations.
So tell me one message to the kids. Just one message.
Yes. Well, I tell you, somebody said. Yes. I went to a peace conference in India, and there were a lot of young people where it was wonderful, and they said, what would be the message, for all these young people? And I said, be yourself, trust yourself, believe in yourself. That's it. Be you.
Wow. Now that is a tall order and something that you actually have to learn to do by unlearning a lot of the things we've been taught about how we should be and how we should feel.
Yes,
what
is
should
right
do.
And what is wrong. Exactly. Or that putting yourself first is being selfish. Has nothing to do with that. If you cannot give what you don't have. So, the sacrificing and all that stuff doesn't work.
I like that. That's great because when you say it, it sounds like a simple message. But the minute you were saying it and I was thinking that it sounds like a simple message, it immediately came to me of how long it took. As you said that about your own life, how long it took to come to that simple message and feel comfortable with it.
Yes, you have to work on yourself. You have to be willing to look at yourself in the mirror. You have to be willing to take 100% responsibility. But it's the easiest way. I always tell people I found the easiest way. That's why my books are called I have other books that are called The Easiest Way to Live. And I said, I found it.
Absolutely. Well, and I'd like to correct you and say when you said you're not a professional author, writer, you said, you actually are. And I only say that because I would say the same thing as you. I wasn't a professional writer, but I wrote 2 books, and they were, as you say, out of my own experience. And, so I was telling a story. The first one, well, I think they were both cathartic, but the second one was so I would remember the lessons in something very simple, in my own backyard. It has to do with animals and an owl, and a little tiny owl that lives here. And you know, like Jill Bolte, she wasn't a professional writer either. She was a
Sure.
scientist who
Yes.
had a brain injury,
Yes.
and then she wrote about it.
Yes.
And so I, I like to see you validate the fact when I look at the pile of books on your website. I'm like, okay, Mabel, I'm going to say it's kind of looking like you are a professional writer. Look at that stack of books on your website. So
I know. No,
and
and yeah, but again, I just want to point out they are very easy to read because again, I don't use, as a professional writer, I don't use very hard words or anything. Maybe I don't even know them because English is my second language, but anyway, so they are simple. Actually, the techniques that I teach are simple, but they are very effective. They work.
well, I think that works for more people having read that other
Yes.
book, and I thought it was really outstanding like you did, but there's some amount of appeal to something that isn't about proving your knowledge base as much as sharing your authenticity, which is often in simple terms that people can understand. And the other thing, as our society has evolved, I brought this up when I was doing ebook and audio book after I did my books, was that people's attention span is not what it was before.
Yes.
With social media and the quick click,
I agree.
on everything,
Yes,
and clicking through TV channels and switching from one thing to another and multitasking. I was commenting once about, encouraging someone to make an audio book out of their book because I said, it used to be when I was growing up that, it constituted an actual activity to cuddle up, with a cup of tea to read a book.
Yes.
That was an activity in and of itself, and you're not finding as many people doing that now. They're listening to a book while they're feeding the dog, cooking dinner, filling out the rest of their paperwork. And so it's going to be, I think, the shorter, more simple, bite-sized pieces that are going to make people kind of go, those moments, where something catches your attention and it was easy to track with because it was short, sweet, simple, that those are the things that I think are more relatable to the masses, actually, than something more complex that's impressive. But if you're doing a couple other things, you get lost in that.
Yes.
You kind of can get lost in that. So I think there's a little something for everybody, but simple is good these days. Bite-sized pieces are good these days, because, especially these days in 2020, because people are so heavy. There's so much heaviness out there, weight in people's minds, so many things going on, and I think that's true even before 2020, but even more so this year, that when it comes to books, probably the simpler and more heartfelt, the better, for people to be able to relate to. So
Yes.
anyway, I think that's cool, and I liked the fact that you wrote your children's book, and I did want to ask about that first, because on a progression, that is a great place to start. There's a lot less to unlearn to become happy if you don't learn it wrong to begin with. You don't have to rewind as far. I think you brought up it changed from a CD to whatever they're MP3s now or whatever they are. But back
Yes.
in the day, where we had the cassettes and you had to rewind, and you'd go back to try to find something you heard and have to rewind and rewind and rewind. And, sometimes that's what we have to do with our lives now is rewind to start unlearning some things to make
Exactly.
the space to be open for the new things to come in.
Yes, definitely. Like I said, especially in these times, yes, you have to be able to adapt and know that you are safe in change. That you will be okay. That makes a big, big difference in everything that you are attracting and how everything is working in your life.
Yes. Okay, so after the children's book, you did read. Well, you read and wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, there was something on your website, really, and that will lead about the book. But one of the things on your biography says, based on using forgiveness and gratitude, Mabel's presentations focus on practical ways for reaching what she calls zero frequency, a state where we are free of restrictive memories and limiting self-talk. Now, I want to stop there and not read the next sentence because I wanted to talk a little bit about that and the restrictive memories and the limiting of self-talk. Will you talk a little bit about self-talk and how that really shapes what direction we're going to go and how we go about that can make a huge difference in our peace of mind, our outcomes, and everything else?
Yeah, well, a little bit of what we were talking is actually when I brought up Jill Bolte Taylor, the brain scientist, and her experience of how we are always talking to ourselves, and usually, it's a bad outcome that is coming, the end of the world, and things like that. So we are never present. Yeah, so if you are engaging, usually, emotionally, you are in the past. It's a memory from the past. If you are worried for the future. And actually, all you have is this present moment. And actually, your future will be your present anyway. But, you can actually change, definitely, because, see, life is about consequences. That's the most important thing. And I always tell parents, you have to teach your kids that life is consequences. It's not about rewards and punishments. It's about consequences. So you have to know that everything depends on your actions, your decisions, and the things that you choose. And the sooner that you learn this, the better. Yes, so many times I have the thing about, there was a conference that I gave in Colombia, and they said, Mabel, but we have to discipline our kids. And, my son brought a bad grade from school, so I told him you cannot go to the soccer game, this weekend. So anyway, I don't know so I talk about consequences again, because we adults have consequences too, yes? So anyway, then a man raised his hand, and he says, Mabel, the boy that didn't get to go to the soccer game is here. Would you talk to him? Yes. So I actually told the boy, and I said, you know what? I love what I do, but there are a lot of things that I have to do that I don't like. But it's part of the package. I know why I do it. So I said, next time, don't study because you actually love to study or anything. But isn't it that you want to go to the soccer game? Just do it because you want to go to the soccer game. So when you know why you are doing things, yes? sure, you will have to do things that you don't like as much, or you wish you didn't have to do it. But when you have that why you do it, yes? So that is like your motor, yes? And that's what keeps you going, and that's what allows you to go through things that maybe you don't like. But again, you know why you are doing it. So, you know, life comes like in a package, yes? And it will have a lot of things that you will like and some things you want. But as long as you know where you are going, as soon as you are clear why you are doing it, they will be much easier. They will go faster.
You know, that's so interesting.
The other thing also, Kim, I'm sorry to interrupt, is that thing of putting the pressure on our kids that they have to get straight A's. There is no way you can get straight A's unless you learn how to manipulate the system, because you cannot be good at everything. And that pressure that we are put on since we are so young, of having to be perfect. You have to be good at everything? No. You are unique. You have unique talents. You cannot be good at everything.
Yes. Yes, that's absolutely true. And it's funny how that dynamic comes up so often about having the straight A's and all of that. That's what I was saying when I was thinking about trying different things, and the way that, you know, my thinking was shaped at having to be the best at and competing, if not with others, competing with myself. You know, a lot of times those thoughts will make you not even want to try. It inhibits people from trying new things because of the fear of not being able to be perfect at it. So they automatically will dismiss trying some of the new ideas or different ideas, being open to different ideas than the canned messages that they've heard before. We talk about that a lot in treatments, so that people with brain injury, it's kind of an interesting dynamic. They are able to fix us when we were at the point of death, so we didn't die, and that's a great thing, you know, talent as a surgeon. But what they were not proficient at was that we were all going to have some residuals, most of us for life, and that was not their purview. Their purview was surgery and saving lives, not dealing with things like short-term memory loss, anxiety, overstimulation, problems with overstimulation. And so what people have been forced to do, and because usually then you're relegated to a psychiatrist. And I used to be very angry and resentful about that, and then I started making jokes on the radio saying, only because I have on guests like you, alternative and holistic and positive and motivational kinds of people on the show, guests, and so, you know, I say, if you weren't crazy before you got into the system, meaning the traditional medical model, you will be. You know, after you get into the system, you know, you will need a couple hours, you know, with the shrink. But that isn't going to be your ultimate answer. Neither is any drug that they're going to put out. And, you know, it's going to be something else. And as you said in the very beginning, it's going to be something within you that you're going to need help getting there, being pointed in that direction, which means being open and willing. I liked what you were saying a lot about consequences. You know, some of the things that you're talking about right now, some basics, and again, why I wanted to talk about the children's book for a moment, and we'll move on, talk about zero frequency, is just because, you know, right now a lot of things are going on in this country that are very destructive and hurtful and dangerous because people are not being faced with consequences for their behavior. And, I thought about that because I did learn. I was a quick study in consequences, I'll tell you that. All you've got to do is be a pretty willful, child, a willful person, going in, and you're going to learn about consequences the hard way, but you're going to learn, lessons that are going to stick, that there are consequences. And that's what, really blows me away with some of the stuff going on today is that, some horrific things are going on without consequences. And not only for the people doing them that are not getting the consequences, that encourages them to keep doing the same things, but there's also a whole world of people and kids by proxy out there that are watching these things and seeing that this is one way that people can communicate their wishes, their demands, their grievances, and they're not getting consequences for doing so. And I found that worrisome about the kids coming up right now, not getting them the messages that you're talking about tonight. So I'd like to encourage everybody, of course we are going to talk about zero frequency now, but I would encourage everybody who's got kids out there listening tonight, and even if you're a kid who's 60, 70, we're in a really unprecedented time, and with all this new stuff coming at us 1,000 miles an hour, it's easy to forget some of the basics that we learned. Hopefully we learned, maybe some of us didn't, but that we learned when we were young, and re-embrace those basics now. We might need to shift, as you say, as the world is shifting, as life is shifting, and not going to be going back to exactly the way it was before. That, I think, is when we're going to need some of the things that are not being demonstrated right now the most, which is personal responsibility and consequences and gratitude and forgiveness. Those are 4 things that we're not seeing a lot of in the in the United States society. I am not viewing, I guess, all of the rest of the world as close up as I am our country right now, but some of those basics just aren't being practiced. So to kind of counterbalance what your kids are seeing on social media and on television, I would, and hearing, from you talking, other adults talking, I would encourage you to, and I want to, as always in my program notes, I always have the person's website, but it's MabelKatz, MabelKatz.com is her website. You can find her books there. Again, just the end of that on the children's book is I encourage everybody who's got kids to check out Mabel's book, MabelKatz.com, and read the book yourself and pass it on to a child to help them get some counterbalance from what they're seeing right now going on across the nation, and how they're hearing people talk and act and react, which a lot of it isn't in a very productive way, and it's not taking into account personal responsibility and not playing on victimhood and not understanding consequences. And I always think that wherever there's one, you want to balance the scales. And this is a great way to do it, is by starting back, with yourself, being more like the open child of wonder and helping kids relearn some of those values that are the things that are going to help them have more happy and productive lives. And like the example you gave, which was a great example of demonstrating how to appeal to that kid who was going to miss the soccer game, was that, if doing this enables you to do that, then you'd have a more positive feeling about doing this because you get to do that. The simple, that's a pretty universal reality, I think, and a good one to gently learn. So, tell us why you decided to go on, and I don't even know what sequence you wrote those books, but to me it seemed like a really good idea, and I was intrigued with the children's book and what it was talking about, because I had a feeling it had to do with the basics that a lot of us have forgotten, especially right now with the pressure and the tension, or we're not acting in them. And so I just thought that was really cool and wanted to bring that to people's mind. But
yes.
So
yes, the children,
you do
like, for example, the audio of the children's book, it's a lot of talking to the subconscious mind, like you said, reminding ourselves of things we forgot. When we were kids, we knew, but then we changed because we thought adults knew better, because we started comparing to other people, competing with our people. We always thought there was something wrong with us, yes? And we lost confidence in ourselves.
Exactly. So when you zoomed up to adults and you decided to write your most recent book, which just came out, and again, people listening, I always have the website written in the program notes, and these shows are posted, as you know, all over different types of social media. You can find them at braininjuryradio.com all the time, or on my website at inaflash.org. You can find all of these shows and the program notes, and they all have the websites for my guests. So if you're not by a pen right now, most of you know this, but for anyone new listening, know that you can always go to my program notes and find these important websites. And I do want to talk about zero frequency now, but I did want to mention while I was talking about your website that she has a number of free resources and affiliates that you might be interested in, as well as information about her books. And so in any case, I just wanted to give you that information. So when you decided to write your most recent book, and your book prior to that, The Easiest Way, Solve Your Problems and Take the Road to Love, Happiness, Wealth, and the Life of Your Dreams, was a best-selling book, but you decided to go on and write Zero Frequency, The Easiest Way to Peace, Happiness, and Abundance. What made you decide to write that, your latest book?
Yes, well, I have to tell you, I've been doing zero frequency trainings around the world for the last 10 years. I actually do have also a website that is zerofrequency.com, and if you go to / book, zerofrequency.com/book, you will find out more about the book. Yes, it's in Amazon, also available. It took me actually 10 years to write this book, and everything happened to me. And, many times you feel, the universe is, playing against me. How come, so many blocks and things like that. Like, for example, the last story of my book was an editor that said that she could do the work in 2 months, and it took a year. So things like that happened to me. And when I had the last manuscript, that was back in July of 2019, but I did not publish this book till July of 2020. And when I went to the recording studio, to do the audiobook, I couldn't believe the things that I put there, because I actually talk about a pandemic, and something contagious like peace and love that can heal anything, And
wow.
I spoke about homeschooling, and I realized that always is, God's time is perfect. Yes, we want to push things, we want to do things, but then when you look back, then you see how perfect everything is. Because this is really a book for these times and what we are living right now. It wasn't for a year ago. It wasn't for 10 years ago. So I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to God, to the universe, to nature, whatever you want to understand, this more intelligent mind than ours. That when you allow it to guide to you, sometimes it doesn't work exactly as you expected, but it's always perfect. Yes? So that makes you a little bit more humble, too. And realize we don't know anything.
That is
yes.
So interesting. Well, and not just parallel, but to let people know, not that they wouldn't believe you, of course they would, but, that's how it happened for me too. So this is really true, everybody, to to keep the faith and to believe. I had journaled in the 1995 January is when I had my brain injury. I was home for about a year, and I journaled, and when I got able to leave and thought I wanted to go back to my life as it was before, I stuffed those journals in a drawer, and I wanted to move forward with my life and never look back. And at the end of 2011, so however many years that was later, 17 years later or whatever, some things shifted in my life, and I found myself needing to do something different. And when you said even if it's not for money, I just needed to do something. It was very important that I do something. And I decided to write a book about my experience. Well, as you you said earlier, back when I was in business and back in 1995 when I had my aneurysm, I don't even know if there was internet back then, but there wasn't for me. I didn't know anything about the computer, don't know if there was social media, don't know if there was internet. The nature of my job is that I sold, and my administrative assistant, the computer back then was the updated IBM Selectric typewriter. That wasn't my function to know how to do that. And she was equally important. Every person who's successful is got great support people, backing them up. But I mean, the point I'm making, I guess, is that a lot had changed. If I would have written that book in 1995, it would have sat there and things wouldn't have played out exactly like they did. But when I wrote the book and it came out at the beginning of 2012, the internet was up and going, and that book is what led me to radio. And that's been the last 9 years. And so when you talk about God's time, not our time, or whatever anyone's belief system would be, as you say, in my case, I just, fill in the blank however you want to. But it does work, in God's time, not our time, quite often. And so, being patient, and which I wasn't very good at, and then I got some lessons in patience, so I'm trying to do better with that. But I think that it's so reaffirming, to hear things like that from other people, because, then all the people that are listening, understand. A lot of people will write a book because they want to be financially successful with it. They're expecting to be a bestseller and do the circuit of daytime talk shows, and that, I'm always telling people, that can't be the motivation. There's 1% that do that, and the rest of us share a message from the heart, and it touches the number of people it's meant to touch, and the people who are going to need the message that we're talking about are going to be getting that message and passing it on, and things happen when they're supposed to happen. So, gosh, I just think that's incredible that, in that 10 years that you were talking about things like pandemics and shifts. And so do you think that your practice made you more intuitive?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Even when I watch myself now on video last year, telling people, in Croatia, in Hungary, in Serbia, I travel actually to all those places to present seminars every year for over 10 years. And I'm telling them, listen, we have to be ready. Things are going to happen. We have, and I said, I didn't even have a clue what I was saying, things are going to happen, and we have to be ready and everything. And really, when I watch right now my videos, I said, what, I am a prophet here or what? I didn't have a clue of actually what I was talking about. So the same thing is, when you write from inspiration. I know that I speak from inspiration in my seminars. I don't have any doubt. It's not totally me, speaking. And that's what I learned to trust, to go with the flow. I actually speak without thinking. I don't prepare a lot. I cannot program myself or prepare. For example, if I have an interview, I always tell people I don't want to know the questions in advance. I'm not interested. I want to be able to flow, to come from inspiration in the moment. Yes, if I know the questions, my intellect will get on the way and will start thinking, we are going to say this and we are going to say that. I don't want to know, actually. Or when people said, what would you like me to ask you? And I said, I don't care. Just ask me whatever you want.
I think that's so funny. That is so funny, because in the time that I've been doing this for 9 years, every now and then people will ask me about the questions, and I always say, I don't do that.
Good for you.
I like to have
I didn't get any questions from you, thank God. I hate when they ask me, what do you like me to ask you? Or when people say, okay, these are the questions. Did you read your question? See, I don't know. I don't want to know what you're going to ask me.
Well, and what's funny about that is the ones that do, send out a press kit with questions in it, invariably, I do have a brain injury, and I won't blame it on that, although it's true, I forget things. But, every week I have a new guest, and so on Monday, I brief myself for who's going to be there that week, and I go back and read what I've written in the program notes. Well, a lot of times they've sent a press kit with questions in it, and I never remember to bring those
well, I actually,
questions.
you probably got one from me because I was forced to.
Oh,
to do it.
I'm sorry.
No.
Well, I hope
what I mean is, we prepare one in general, not specifically for you. But what I'm saying is, like, people say, no, everybody, likes to get, your questions and things. And I said, really, do I have to? But, I had to because, we were preparing a media kit and I had to. But, it's, yeah, I don't care what you're going to ask me. But some interviewers, they need it. Or some interviewees need to know what you're going to ask them too, yes?
That's true. We're on Brain Injury Radio's on 7.
So we have to accommodate for everybody.
We do. There's a lot of different hosts, and then a lot of them send out 12 questions, to their guests. But I prefer to have the interviews be conversational. I don't know. They kind of unfurl as we go. I don't know. It just seemed to work very well, and I agree with you about the spontaneity. There's so many things that maybe wouldn't have come up, in the same way doing it with the questions. But anyway, that's funny. We have a lot of things in common. As we've done the interview tonight, and I've been listening, I've been smiling a lot because we have a lot of things in common. So I guess I'll be, reading your book and trying that too, because it sounds like it's right up my alley. So it took you 10 years, and you decided to write the book. As it turns out, it's extremely timely for what's going on right now.
Totally.
Because let me go back to where.
Well, I talk about practice peace and practice abundance, and a lot of the things that will help you, again, to live in the present. If you are in the present, you always have everything you need. You don't have to worry about anything. And then everything will get added. If you are happy, if you are at peace, you are present, it's like you become like a magnet. Things just come to you effortlessly.
Absolutely.
Then you end up at the right time, at the right place, with the right people. And you look back and you say, and I hardly had to do anything. It just happened.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, we could all use abundance and happiness. There's a lot of the opposite going on, but a lot of times we just need a new perspective, like a new pair of glasses. Sometimes I liken it to, if you do wear any kind of corrective lenses or glasses that, and you don't have them on for a length of time, and then you put them on, you get a completely different perspective. Yes. You're still looking at the same thing, but you can process it differently with the new vision. And it sounds like that's a lot of what you're talking about, and the fact that you were intuitive enough to talk about conditions that are like the conditions we're going through now is very telling. That's very, very interesting. So I encourage you all, whether you go to mabelkatz.com or zerofrequency.com, you can find out more about the book. And who doesn't want peace, happiness, and abundance in a year of chaos, sadness, and depletion?
Yes.
So,
again, what do you have to lose? Yes. This is simple. It really works for everybody. It's not for everybody. You have to follow. I tell people, my mission is to wake up people. It's not to convince you, of what is it that you have to do. But you have to do something. You have to realize that whatever you were doing, it, didn't work. and that the happiness and peace you are looking for, you are going to find it inside of you, and that the abundance will come. It will get added, but by you being happy, by you being at peace.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we've gotten 2 hours in here. I want to thank you so very much for your time tonight.
When I saw the first hour going, I said, I'm wondering how long this is thing. But I really enjoy, Kim, and I really salute you for, going through what you went through and being able to help and support other people. So I'm glad, to spend this time with you.
Yes, and I'm so very glad that you did. And I do tell the agents that if the guest wants to leave after an hour, and I guess you listeners can all hear this now too. I tell them I know that it's a long time, but two things really. One is that most of the people I have on as guests have a real passion for what they do. And if you tell them, when they see 2 hours, there's like, oh my God, there's no way that could possibly happen. And I always tell them that I'm the one that's got to be prepared to be here for 2 hours, and will be. I'll just piggyback off whatever the guest and I are talking about. I'll go on and talk about something related in the second hour, and to have them tell the guest, Kim, it's been great being here. I'd love to come back sometime, but I've got an early morning meeting, got to cut out now, and that's fine. And that works, but so many times I found that everyone that I have on as a guest has so much passion for what they do that it really isn't hard. We look up and like I just did at the clock, and like, whoa, okay, the show's over.
And also you put us in a state of peace too. You lower us to, hey, come down. Stay here. And be present also, and it's nice too. It's a nice space.
Well, thank you. Is there any last thing you'd like to say to the audience?
Yeah, so yes, I could have told you I'm busy, I didn't know it was going to take, but I was enjoying the company too, so I decided to stay. Nobody told me how long was going to be either. I didn't know, so I kept going with you. I was riding keep riding it.
Well, I feel like I'm so blessed. This is one of the things that I'm grateful for in my journey, and particularly this year, because just like you and everybody else, my routine either got taken away or altered drastically. Sure. But one thing that hasn't is this. This is all online, and this is the one thing and the one time that has stayed constant for me, and I get to pick the people. You were chosen.
Thank you. Thank you.
As someone I thought would be super interesting, to talk to and to hear more about. So, you hear that thing, inquiring minds, and so I thought, wow, she looks like a really nice lady. And I, read through your website, and I thought, gee, I would love to have the opportunity to talk to her. So it is really nice. I get to talk to some fantastic people with some really wonderful messages for our listeners and get all kinds of positive feedback. And I know that I'll get a lot of that tonight. So thanks again for being
thank
here.
Thank you for picking me.
Well, you were introduced to me through a third party, but yes. I definitely wanted you to be on. I read what your book was about, and just like the time came that you knew it was the time to publish your book, I knew it was the perfect time to talk about your book.
Thank you.
On
Thank
the air.
Thank you so much.
in any demographic, particularly this one. But thank you so much for being
No,
here.
thank you.
I
It was
hope we
really
can stay in
great.
touch.
I really enjoy this time with you, and I hope we got to some listeners that we can support and help, and especially with these times we are going through.
Well, and this is good too. We do go to all 50 states, 49 countries. Have been an established network for actually 11 years, I guess. And so, there's about 50,000 listeners, I think, that listen, and then all of these shows go on demand. So I sent your agent, I guess, back the promotional link to this show, so if she didn't send it to you and you want that, then you would be able to listen back to the show if you wanted to ever, or pass it on to anybody that you think might benefit from hearing what we had to say tonight. So
we are going to definitely share it, sure.
Are you doing a show now, radio show or TV show now?
No, I'm just doing lives on Facebook and Instagram on Saturday mornings just to support my followers, or anybody that would like to become a follower. But so I am in Mabel Katz fan page, that's Facebook, and then the other, I am in YouTube. I have, I'm everywhere but as Mabel Katz. But no, I'm not. I actually, when I started traveling again, I stopped with my radio and TV shows here in LA because I couldn't, afford it time-wise and things. So I just started traveling, and that's what I did nonstop, actually, for all these years.
Well, I just wanted to make sure if you've done so many things in your career, I just wanted to make sure if you had a TV show or a podcast on that we directed people to it. But
no,
that you did do that in the on Facebook. You have a live.
Yes.
Tell us about that one more time.
Yeah, Saturday mornings I do 10 a.m. Los Angeles time 11 a.m. Los Angeles time in Spanish, and then at 12 p.m. noon time I do English. So always trying to encourage people and remind them they can be at peace, no matter what is going on around them.
That's so neat. Well, everybody make sure, I know a lot of you are listening on Facebook, make sure to find her page. I'm going to do that as soon as I get off the air.
Thank you so much. It's Mabel Katz fan page, or Instagram, just Mabel Katz.
Yeah, I didn't evolve far enough to get to Instagram, but a lot of our listeners have. So listeners out there, you can do it on Instagram. I'm going to have to go on Facebook, even though I got to say I do hate the way that I'm resistant to change sometimes. I really hate that new format that they have. I'm not used to it yet, but
I know. We had to adjust ourselves to many things, to adapt and adjust, many things. Okay, now
did
I'm going to go.
Have to do everything this year? All right, good night, Mabel. Thank you so much for being here.
It was great It was great having this conversation with you and your listeners. God bless everybody. Thank you.